Welcome to CivilNet. My guest via Skype from Istanbul is Serdar Korucu. He is a writer and journalist. Serdar, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
The world's attention is really focused on Kobane, especially the last several weeks. As you know, as we know, it is a city on the border of Syria and Turkey that came under attack by the Islamic State, ISIS. Almost 180,000 Kurds were forced to flee. They crossed the border into Turkey. U.S. air raids have been taking place. And for all intents and purposes, it appears that the Kurdish rebel fighters or the Kurdish forces have been able to hold back the IS. The reason why we asked you to join us is because you wrote an essay in Agos, which is a Turkish-Armenian weekly newspaper in Turkey, that was called Kobane in 1915, and you talk about the Armenian connection. Tell me a little bit about that piece, if you will, please.
Yep. Actually, Urfa and this region has a Jewish background also. For example, Surich, which is rural districts of Urfa, its name is associated with Saru, the great-grandfather of the Prophet Abraham. And in Ottoman Empire era, Kobane, and is another name, Arab Punar, Ain al-Arab, or it means that spring of Arabs. And this place in 1915, in Armenian genocide period, according to Raymond Kevorkian, Armenian genocide book, he mentioned that Armenian refugees from Sivas to this region, over than 100 Armenians died just in a day because of diseases, and lots of Armenians died in this area in this period. As you know, German consul also Aleppo, German consul of Aleppo, Walter Bosler, informed us also this period. According to his reports, he mentioned an elderly German engineer who has stationed in Arapunar, and in these reports he said that the strange of corpses in the area between the two stations, Arapunar and Nasnas, it's another region in Syria. In these two regions, has so strong smell because of corpse, and this means that there is a big massacre places for this period.
Right. Just to put it into context for our viewers, in 1915, when the Ottoman Empire at the time began executing plans to annihilate the Armenians, what we now call the Armenian genocide, many Armenians from different areas of the Ottoman Empire were forced to on exile, and most ended up in the Syrian desert. So these exiled Armenians somehow ended up near or in Kobane, and where a lot of them died of malnutrition, died of diseases. So you looked at eyewitness accounts from that period. Was it actually in 1915 or a little bit later?
Actually in 1915 and later. But in 1915 also, there was an exile, and some camps also in Arab Punar, and a lot of Armenian lived and then died in this area. And then after Armenian genocide period, there was a bit Armenian population also after Turkish Republic and Syrian border when it came, a bit Armenian population lived in Kobane in Ain al-Arab, and they had two schools also in these places, and they educated also, and then they went to most of them went to Soviet Russia.
To Soviet Armenia, right. I was reading, and because we translated your article into Armenian for our site on CivilNet, and I was reading that two of the schools, as you mentioned, They were operating till, one of them till the 1960s. And then most of them left, as you said. But I also read somewhere that there were also 2 or 3 Armenian churches that were built in that period. Do those buildings still exist, the school and the churches in Kobane?
I heard that now exists. Actually, when I talked with my friends in Kobane, they have no idea about churches and schools also. Most of them, they have no idea about schools. A bit Armenian population remembered it, but today's Kurds, most of them, not remember the schools or churches, and now we can't find these churches also.
Right, and so we don't even know if there were any Armenians that remained or became Islamicized, or do we have any proof or evidence that there were Armenians left after the sort of repatriation to Soviet Armenia?
A bit, but not so much. And some local people told me that some of them converted to Islam or Kurds. And for example, maybe you heard it, but in Turkey we have an argument about it. MHP, it's a nationalist party in Turkey, argue about it. They think that when they crossing to Turkey, some Armenians also are passing Turkey from Kobane. They were Armenian, but now they converted their religion and they changed their ethnic identity to Kurds and Islamic. But MHP, for example, thinks that, and some sources in Kobane also, some of them thinks that some Kurdish populations roots from Armenian also.
Serdar, it's interesting to me. Why was this important for you to write about, and where did you get some of the information for the piece?
I wrote it because of, Turkey has a big argument about Kobane. There's protests, and 35 people died in only 1 or 2 weeks. And I want to show people that this area has a bloody history also, and Armenian people has a culture and has a history in this area also. And I don't know, maybe this area has a bad destiny. I don't know, but because maybe this is a curse. I don't know.
Yeah, because you had written, I think, that in 1915, as sort of the survivors of the Armenian genocide filed into Kobane, many of them later dying because of, as we said, because of lack of nutrition and disease. And now, 100 years later, almost 100 years later, Kobane is again on the brink of execution of its citizens, of the annihilation of the Kurds living in that city.
Yes.
Okay, well, Serdar, thank you, first of all, for writing the piece, and for our viewers, we will share the link on the description of our interview so that they can read it, because it did get a lot of attention here in Armenia, and I'm sure it got a lot of attention when you published it in August. So thank you very much, and we will be talking with you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to remind our viewers that my guest was Serdar Korucu. He is a columnist and a writer for Agos. Stay with CivilNet.